when the camera's not there.
Okay.
All right. We're good. All right. So first off, tell me what the last 24, 36 hours have been like for you.
They've been a challenge. They've been really tough. Kind of an emotional roller coaster because we've shared a lot of good memories of Ryan and a lot of laughs because he was a very joyful person, full of life and vitality. He liked to joke around. He was kind of a ham. He would like to, make fun of himself sometimes, but also he liked to talk about how great his hair was. He had a lot of good hair days, and he had good hair. I'm not gonna lie, but he just liked to make people laugh. He liked to smile. You didn't see Ryan frown a lot. You didn't never seem to catch him on a bad day. He always seemed to have something to kind of smile about and laugh. And very respectful person. Always very well mannered, very well raised. Always called me Mr. Andy, and I'd known him for a long time, but recently I tried to tell him, I was like, Ryan, you're 23 years old now, you don't have to call me Mr. Andy anymore, and he would say, yes, Mr. Andy. So just a super individual, and I know it's easy to say that a lot of times about someone that's passed away, but I just can't find anybody that would say anything bad about Ryan. Just, again, full of life and always happy and positive.
What did it mean to him to be on the Knightdale Police Department, to be in the force?
It meant the world. So he was so excited. He would tell us at church, anybody that would listen, how many days he had left of training. And even going back before he got hired by Knightdale, when he was in his training, his BLET training, I would often ask him, what'd you do this week? And he was excited about each step of the process. He was given to a life of service. He has military service. He's in the National Guard, and did his duty as an American soldier and served in Afghanistan. During one of the hurricanes when the Guard was called up, he was one of the first two people to respond to volunteer to get there to help as quickly as possible. So, he just loved to help people. He had a heart for others, a kindness, a gentleness of just being a public servant. And coming from a family of public servants with his dad with so many years in law enforcement and retiring as the Zebulon Chief of Police, I know he wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps, and he'd often talk to me and to others about police work, but he was just very excited. And I think the last I heard, he told me he was down to 10 days of training, and he was excited about getting off training, as we all were at one point in our career, ready to get off training and kind of be by yourself. But one thing he wanted was that car. He talked about how he was going to back his car into his driveway. He was going to have his own police car. Nobody would be able to park in front of him because he may have to get out. So he was very excited about that, and we all teased him about that, but he just loved the life of service.
Did he say why Knightdale?
Well, I think he actually applied at Raleigh. He applied I don't know if he applied anywhere else, but I know he had considered several options. I think a small town department kind of fit him well. He kind of grew up in a small town with Zebulon, and his dad was in that size department. So I think he liked, it's easier to get to know everybody in that size department, and I think that kind of appealed to him. But I don't know specifically why Knightdale. I just know he was so ready to be a police officer and to start that service, and so.
Okay, and walk us through. I know that you were working, that night of the crash. Tell us how you came upon the scene and how all that happened.
So I was working in downtown Raleigh actually when the call went out that we had an officer down. And so obviously there's going to be a very heavy response from anyone that can get there to try and help. And so I was able to get there before Ryan was transported to the hospital, and I saw the severity of the crash and all that was going on. But by the time I got there was a lot of there's fire and EMS and a lot of officers and a lot of agencies showed up. And we're a law enforcement community, and so when one of us is hurt, everybody's going to help. And that has continued on even since that night and the aftermath, with Knightdale just being so good to their officer, but also the law enforcement community as a whole, reaching out to support Knightdale in every way we can and support the family of Ryan Hayworth.
Tell me, when did you learn that Ryan was injured in that crash?
That's hard to talk about. So I knew Ryan and I worked the same dates. We worked the same actually physical date, but not always the same shift. So sometimes when I was on nights, he was on days, but they rotate every 2 weeks. We rotate every 4 weeks. So some dates we were. And initially when the call went out, I was just super focused on getting to the scene to try and help whoever it was. and it did not enter into my mind that it could be Ryan Hayworth. I got there and even trying to initially, as the watch commander, I'm responsible for a lot of things and coordinating shutting down the road, and I was worrying. I knew they were doing CPR on Ryan, and I wanted to get every intersection blocked between the ambulance and Wake Medical Center. So I was worried about that, and I never really got a close enough look at Ryan or his face to realize that it was Ryan. Shortly after he was transported, I was again trying to assist. They were still working on other people that were at the scene that had been injured, and I was looking for some of Ryan's equipment that had been knocked off because of the severity of the crash. And so his gun, his flashlight, and his gun magazine had all been just propelled away from him because of the force of the crash. And I looked down and saw a radio battery that had his name on it, and that's the first I learned that it was Ryan that had been struck so severely.
That must have been so hard because you still have to focus on the job that you need to do, and yet it hits home that you know this person.
It's like nothing I've ever felt. It's I've done in my 26th year with Raleigh. A lot of it in violent crimes over homicide, and I made a lot of death notifications, and none of them are easy. It's never easy to go tell someone that was just working, doing their job, and got shot 17 times for no reason. Was I think the last one I made, to go tell a widow and her 5-year-old son that their loved one's not coming home for absolutely no reason that can make sense to the human mind. That doesn't compare when it's someone you know, and someone you love. And he was one of those guys that's easy to love, and meant a lot to our family and to his church family, and just was such a well-liked person. So the words can't describe the feeling I felt in my stomach, but at that point I knew I had to transition I wanted to go be with his family and let them know. I wanted to be the one that was there to tell them and to help them in any way I could. So at that point I did kind of transition to allowing other supervisors that were on scene capable to kind of take over the situation there, and drove to the Hayworth house.
How did his family take it?
Oh, they're devastated. They have a very strong faith, as did Ryan. They were strong believers in God, and we have a good church family at Faith Baptist Church that have wrapped our arms around them. And they're not mad at God. They question why it had to be Ryan, as we do. But we understand that Ryan's with Jesus, and that gives them comfort, and they know they'll see Ryan again.
Tell me, I know you were with the family all day, to see that procession of law enforcement, that show of support this afternoon, what was going through your mind when you saw that?
Well, there's a sense of pride. There's a sense of pride I felt from how officers in every agency responded, but personally in my agency that I work for, how we responded to help and to do things right, and to make sure things were done at the scene right. And the Highway Patrol comes in and does the crash reconstruction, and I heard they did an excellent job. I was not there at the time, but everything I've heard is just that everybody stepped up. So you have a sense of pride. Police officer funerals are spectacular events. They give you a lot of pride and just a sense of, but yet I never want to go to one. I never want to go to another one, and I always say that. But the outpouring of just support from the community, but then from other law enforcement agencies, as we honor someone who deserves to be honored, is very, it's hard to put into words, a sense of pride and just what we do and why we do it, and honoring someone who did it well.
Tell me, I'm sure that you have conducted countless, I guess this wasn't a traffic stop, he was coming to assist a single vehicle crash, but you do these things every day, and then you just never know that something like this could happen.
There's a lot of inherent dangers in police work. One of them is traffic, whether you're stopping to help somebody change a tire or stop somebody for a traffic violation, or in this case, just another, property damage only crash, I believe is what he was investigating. And Ryan did nothing wrong. He didn't take any unwise risks. He was just simply doing his job, and situation completely out of his control, and nothing he could have done to protect himself from the way he was killed. So it's you never can put it out of your mind. You still got to come in. Everybody still came in the next day to do their job. You know it's part of the risk. You hug your family tight.
Do you think that it's set in for his family and for his law enforcement family in Knightdale?
I think it's going to be a long process. I mean, obviously, we're still in shock. There is the initial shock kind of wears off, and then it comes back. And again, as I mentioned, these last 40 hours have been such an emotional roller coaster of, remembering Ryan for who he was and his life that was well lived, and his servant's heart and his desire to serve others. And then there's the laughter of all the things that he did to make us smile and to laugh. And then, and then 5 minutes later, you can't talk. You can't stop sobbing. You can't find peace and sleep the way you want to, because it's still just so painful. So his family's hurting. They're going to be hurting for a while, and we're going to continue to support them for a long time.
Did he have any brothers and sisters?
He does have a brother. His brother's a firefighter, as you might imagine, and in service. So he did have just the one sibling, but then he's got a lot of just really close friends in his youth group that have. Ryan's been on at least 5 mission trips that I know of, to other countries where they would go and serve, poor communities or do service projects for people, for the less fortunate. Instead of taking a vacation to the beach or doing something that a lot of kids that age may want to do, his desire was to serve others in that capacity, even as a teenager. So they have a lot of good memories from those, and I had a dozen kids in my house last night that were really close friends to Ryan, just sharing those stories and laughing and crying and all that.
Was there a story that you heard that you didn't know about that kind of maybe surprised you, or?
I don't know. I think I probably heard most of them, and again, he just had such a good personality. He loved to make others laugh and to laugh at himself and to talk about, again, how good his hair was, or how good he liked hunting and fishing. He liked video games. He liked to just be with people and socialize. He was very faithful in his church, as I mentioned, and again, loved being with his youth group and with his friends at church, and then had recently kind of transitioned as he had gone older to actually serving in the youth and being a mentor and helping those that are, teenagers can be tough years for a lot of kids, and so helping them try and learn that they'll get through and what it takes to be a believer that'll help you with your faith.
He sounds like just such a remarkable person.
He sure was.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to get across?
Did I miss anything big? I think so. I just wanted people to know that Ryan was a very special individual, that he was more than just another police officer. He was a dedicated and very kind person that loved people, loved to help people. Didn't matter if he knew you or didn't know you. Didn't matter what you looked like or how old you were or where you came from. He was willing to help. Whether it was you're moving or you're just need help with a chore or change a tire. Ryan was that person that just liked helping people, and he would. He recently helped me on a project, and in the process of trying to tear down a building, he broke his toe strap that he was trying to pull down the building with his truck. About 8 hours before Ryan was killed, I had bought him a new toe strap.
Wow.
And it was in my truck. I hadn't told him, but I was at a hardware store, and I thought, I'm going to get him his toe strap and I'll get it back to him. And I didn't think of that till several hours after he was gone, that how much I had thought of Ryan just that day. So he was just a fun person to be around, and a good person.
Yeah, it sounds like he lived his life in service of his community.
He did. Like I said, he was just one of those persons that didn't get down, so that always lifted other people around him up. He was always smiling, so it was hard not to smile back. It's just someone that brightened everybody's day.
And had he been training exclusively with the officer he was with?
I'm not sure exactly how their field training. Ours would be, usually you have more than one, so you go back and forth between two. I'm not sure how theirs. So I would imagine he wasn't the only training officer. And you know, the Hayworth's hearts are broken for the injuries that officer received and the other individuals in the wreck. They're very mindful that there are a lot of people hurting, not just their family.
Yeah, so sad. This driver drunk drive. It's just senselessness of it.
It is. I mean, it's sad that we still have people in today that take that risk and think that it's okay to drive impaired, and so we definitely don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Can I have you say and spell your first and last name for me?
Sure. It's Andy, A-N-D-Y, Murr, M-U-R-R.
Okay. Thank you very much. And you said you've been with the Raleigh Police Department 26 years?
This is my 26th year.
Wow. Thank you so much
Sure.
for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.